All right, this is Outremer. I think that's how you say it. Faith and Blood by Osprey Games, and it's written by Jamie Gordon. It's soft cover, perfect bound, 64 pages, and it's basically set in the Crusades. And so you have the choice, do you want to be part of the Crusaders, military orders, or Saracens? You can't be mixing them up. You're just going to be one of those. And then you can just have a little skirmish game, and you guys can get experience and increase their skills and so forth in this game. So we're going to take a skim here, and this is how it's laid out. And as usual, full color photos, illustrations in this book, as usual by Osprey. So let's take a look inside and see what this game is all about. Here's the table of contents. Has the introduction to the game. Here's the core rules, the weapons, armor you're going to be using in the game, your warband selection, which there are 3, Crusaders, military orders, and Saracens. How campaign is set up, how you use the experience points to advance your warband, and then the scenarios used in the game. All right, this is the introduction section. And the first part, it's going to tell you what the setting is. And so it's going to be about the Christians going on their crusades. Next part will be what you need to play the game. And you are going to need the assortment of dice here. So your D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and D20. You're going to need measuring tape, a deck of cards, but just make sure the jokers are removed. So 52 cards there. Your pencil paper models, and you can see here how the models are going to need to be based. And then finally some character sheets, which I will go over in just a little bit. What we got next is model profiles, which I'll cover really in the next page, which is here. So you're going to have the name, and you can read what they basically are, pretty self-explanatory. Except for remarks is maybe the campaign's gone on and these are things you've expanded on this certain model. And the card is from what I get, you're going to pick a card, and it shows it kind of, where is it? Name card right here. So it says each warrior, model activation is card based, and such each model is allocated a specific playing card at start of each battle. Note down the card here. So in this case, this card has been allocated the King of Clubs. All right, here's the core rules. This is basically how is the game played. First, you're going to have to decide what suit you want to play. So are you going to be like diamonds, clubs, hearts, and so forth? So this player decides they're going to be diamonds, and they have 3 models. They're going to take 3 different diamond cards and allocate this card to a certain model, this one to a different one, and this to the 3rd model. And the opponent's going to do the same thing, but in a different suit. So this opponent also has 3 models, and they decided to go spades. And so they allocated those cards out and written them just like it's shown here. So the King of Clubs. And then these get shuffled together, and hopefully you do better than I am. I'm just doing real quick here. And then what you do is you flip over the top one. So whichever model is the 4 of spades gets to activate. And I'll go over what they can do when they activate. And then after they're done, the 8 of diamonds gets to go, then the 4 of diamonds, then the 7 of spades, King of diamonds, and Ace of spades. And then the turn is over. And if the model's still in there, its card stays. If not, get rid of it. So that's how you do activations. Now, what can they do when they activate? That's down here. They can do 2 activations. They can move, hide, shoot, melee, rally, and rest. And most of these you can do 2 actions. There's a few that's all you're going to do that turn. So movement's pretty simple. This is in inches, and if you look up here, the character can move 2.5 inches. Now this character, when it's done moving 2.5 inches, can move again, because you are allowed 2 move actions if you want to. Now there are some, they also go over like jumping, climbing, falling, what happens if you want to cross water, what if you want to go in buildings, what happens there. But there's also some other terrain like difficult terrain, so it's going to slow you down. There's some dangerous terrain, which actually may injure your model. And then impassable terrain, which means that model cannot enter that terrain. Now, another thing your model can do, they can also, as one of the activations, I don't have the models that fit this, so I'm just going to use my Greek and Samurai. If this model's within 2.5 inches of that one, it can do a charge action, and it gets kind of like a free attack there. So that move, if it makes it in there, also includes a free attack. So hiding, as it shows here, is you're going to try to get behind your model behind some terrain that it can hide behind. And basically, if it stays out of line of sight, so it cannot be attacked. However, it could possibly be spotted, such as, here's my Samurai. He's hiding behind the wall here. Trying not to cover up all the text for you. And if this model happens to get on the other side of the wall, then that figure is no longer hidden from him. So it's a way to protect your models from being attacked. Now, shooting. How do you shoot at a target? Well, I'm going to use this as an example, and he's going to be shooting at this guy. And basically, this model is going to have a shoot attack die. And if we go back over here, this one says D12. Well, let's just use a D12. So here we go. This one has an attack die of D12. So he's going to roll this and try to get 5 or higher. And there might be some modifiers. And he rolled a 1, so he missed. But let's say he got a 6. He hit the target, but did he damage the target? Well, what's going to happen is the melee weapon has a power level to it. And we'll just say this one has a power level of 6, a D6. And this guy has a toughness, and we're going to say he has a toughness of 3. So if we go back over here, you can see the guy's toughness right there. This one says 5. And then these are going to say, does it have a strength to it? And these don't. This is not a ranged weapon. So this one is going to have to roll greater than or equal to this one. So it's going to have to get a 3 or higher on this to damage that model. And it got a 3. Damages that model. Now normally the weapon's going to do 1 damage, but if this weapon has like a higher power rating or something like that, it'll say that this weapon, when it does damage, does 2 damage or 3. And it may actually take this model out, because a lot of the models have 1 wound, so this model may be taken out. When this model has 0 wounds left, it's called taken out. Now melee, a little bit different. If you want to charge in, you have to take a faith test against a person's presence, and you roll against each other. So this may be, this guy's going to charge into that one. And again, I'm going to just turn it like this so it's a little easier to see. This guy's presence a D6, but this guy has a faith of D8. If he rolls equal to or higher than that one, he gets to charge in. Oh, no, he's a little worried about it, so he is done. He doesn't get to do any more actions this turn. He's kind of getting his bravery back. Let's say this got reversed. All right, he succeeded. He can now charge in and do combat. Now, how do you do melee? You got an attack die versus a defense die. And again, it's going to be on the stat. So here's the attack and defense. So one's going to be a D10. So if he gets attacking in melee, he gets a D10. If he's on defense, he's going to get a D8. And you're just going to roll, and the attacker has to beat the defense roll, not equal it. Has to actually beat it. So in this case, he did not beat that D8. And again, if he did beat it, he does 1 damage unless the weapon allows more damage. If the target has a helmet or shield, there's a possibility he gets a saving throw to nullify that wound. They also go in here about mounted combat. There's a morale that possibly if you get down where you're 25% less, if 25% of your models are out of the game, you can decide just to leave the game. If it gets more and more, you can decide just to leave the game. There's also, some of these guys may flee from battle, like, oh, I'm getting out of here. They have a rally, and that's one of the actions they can do. They can try to rally, and if they're unsuccessful, they move away from the opponents, and they may actually go off the table. There's also a rest action, and this one is the action they can only do this action. So it's going to take up both their actions. And what happens there, I'm going to kind of turn to some of this stuff so you kind of see what's going on here. With the rest action, they're going to get 1 wound back. They're going to heal 1 wound, and that's over here. And you have to declare that well, not that, but got my list here is a little out of order. If you're going to do that morale deal of fleeing, like I'm going to come off the table because I want to save my guys because they got a lot of experience. Sorry, I'm going back to that, but you have to declare that before, at the beginning of the turn, before the cards are drawn. Then I can talk about the rest action. So that's pretty much the basics of how the games work. You're going to have a die for your guy, a die for a defense. You're going to roll against each other. Normally you're going to cause 1 wound unless the weapon says otherwise. All right, this is the warband section, or how do you build your warband. And you're going to get, they suggest like 750, I'm going to call it livers. I have no idea liver is. You get 750 of this to spend on your warband. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the Crusaders. There's also the military orders, and Saracens are set up the same way, but they have some different abilities and some different people you can buy. And so if we look here, every warband's going to need a leader. And that's going to be the one in charge. And the rest of your force is going to be made up of warriors. And if you need to see what these are, again, you just pause the video and look at what it was. So I'm going to go on. So let's look at the Crusaders here. And the career path that they can go through. And kind of a XP chart. Kind of shows you their ranking. Now this doesn't show the points, this is just their XP. And I'll show you the points in just a little bit for just the Crusaders here. And then there's the Men of Gold you can hire. And you kind of talks a little bit about them there. And it continues up here. Then we've got the Nobleman Leader. And then each army is going to have special traits that they can do. And so this one has Satan's Weapon. And if you need to pause it, just go ahead, or see it longer, just go ahead and pause it. They also have Deuce I guess, Crouched Lance Charge, and Weapon of Chivalry. Now let's look at some of these profiles here. And so you're going to see it's going to look very familiar. Here's the cost of that liveries thing, what faction they belong to. You can't mix, so you can't have Crusaders and Saracens in the same force. So if you're playing Crusaders, that's all you're going to be playing. And it has their move, their shoot, attack, defense, how many wounds they can take, their faith die, how tough they are, if, like ranged attack hits them or something like that, and then their presence, their experience, what they are, and then any special abilities they may have. So you can see that for all these guys. Then if we continue to the next page, and then we have these over here. So you actually do have a lot of different choices of what do you want in your Crusaders. And now this is the military orders here, so we won't go through them. So you kind of get an idea how the warband is laid out in this book. So you and your opponent pick how many points do you want, which is that liveries thing, and then do you want to equip them with weapons, and those cost armor, those cost, and so forth if you want to upgrade these guys. And so that is how you build up your warband. All right, this section is about the campaign. So if you want to continue the story going, or you guys want to get experience up, this is how you would do it. One of the first things they talk about is if the model's taken down, so it's down to 0 hit points, it may not be dead. So let's say these two were in melee and this one won and took that one down. He can spend another action to either kill it outright or capture it. Or he can just go on and leave it in the battlefield. Now if this survives, this model survives, you're going to roll a d20 and see what happens to that model. Since it was wounded, something probably happened to it. So you kind of see what's happened here. It does go through what's slain, captured, and you can do the opponent wants to rescue them. They can try to rescue them. It could be sold into slavery to get some more money, or you can ransom them back to the opponent. Now the next part is upkeep, reinforcement, and trade. And here they talk about what you need to do upkeep. So it costs money because you have to pay food, lodging, and all this. So it costs money to keep these warriors in your force. About getting reinforcements, dismissing people, trading in stuff you get from the battlefield, armory, about getting your reputation up and what that can do for you, and then how you end a campaign. But it also talks about let's just have a battle here, and it goes through that. Now there's also what's called sellswords, and these are people you can hire that are not part of like Crusaders or whatever, but it says here who they will join, and so you can hire these guys and how much they cost. And then these guys are the ones for the Saracens, which they can hire these guys to join their force. So that is the campaign section. All right, you've been playing in a campaign and your characters have gotten some experience. How does that correlate in this game? So what you're going to have to do is, and I'll go back to this chart with the Crusaders. If we look here, let's say you have a Knight Brother 1, and it has these A, C, D, G. We'll get to that in just a minute. But it says 0 to 10. Once it reaches 11, it's able to roll on chart A, C, D, or G to get a new skill. So let's go look at those skills, and the one we're going to look at is the basic traits one. And this is A, as you can see right here, A, and then there's a chart B, which is like ranged weapons is B, and C is like melee traits, D is professional warrior traits, and I'll tell you what the other names are, but then you're going to roll a D20 and see what skill this character is going to receive. And if it has an asterisk, it can only be taken once. So if you need to look at this longer, go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to go on to tell you the other traits tables. There's ranged weapon traits, melee traits, professional warrior traits, craftsman traits, merchant traits, mounted warrior traits, nobility traits, holy church traits, military orders traits, and scholar of Allah traits. And so these are the things you kind of can get when you get enough XP for your warband. All right, the last section is scenarios. And I'll go through the first two, and then I'll just kind of tell you the names of the others. This one is skirmish. It's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Now, if it does have an M, that means you can have multiple people playing. So it says right up here, if it has an M, it's suitable for multiple players. In this one, you're just basic battle, trying to take each other out. That's normally the way these are set up. Is the first one is just kind of learn the game and let's just go take each other out. Now, scenario 2 is you have been raiding towns or villages, whatever, for supplies, and your opponent has also, and you both have met in the same town. So this is the setup for that. And what you're going to do, and the rewards. And if you need to, again, look at it longer, you can pause the video. Now the other scenarios are capture the flag, which is you're trying to capture like the center of the table, and whoever holds it like after so many turns wins the game. Rescue is that one where like a soldier's been captured by the enemy and you're trying to rescue that soldier back. Caravan is one of you is defending a merchant caravan and the other one is attacking it. And the final one is camp assault. One of the players, warband, is asleep and the other one's attacking the camp. All right, that's Outremer, Faith and Blood. It's a pretty interesting little skirmish game. I'm not so much into the Crusades and all that, so it's not my genre. I like fantasy and sci-fi and all that. So in World War II, but this is not quite my genre. But there were some interesting things I did like in this I'd like to see in some other games too, and that is like the initiative system. I do like that. Just boom, okay, which character is that? Which it gets to activate. And the activations aren't that difficult. You get to do 2 actions, and they can move so far. I don't like the 2.5 inches. Why not just make it 3 or 2? Half an inch, just that. Another thing is I do like the die system, but the problem I have is sometimes you have to beat them. Sometimes you can equal them. I wish they would have just been a little more consistent on that. Like, as long as you tie them, you're okay. Or as long as you always beat the defender, you're okay. Another thing I did like, though, was the amount, if you're doing a campaign, the number of skills that you could get. Because there's, I think, 11 different skill categories, so there's a lot of variety there. Now, you are limited, though, to 3 different armies. Crusaders, or the military orders, or Saracens. So that's going to be your limit to that. I wish there was just a little bit more. But I do kind of like the system, except for just a few things I said there, and I do like that initiative system. So, yeah. So if that interests you, give it a try, because it does have some neat items or neat things you can do in the game.